Hello, this is Pixie doing another video. More into the paranormal for this one. I may have mentioned before, I was going to this client, and his wife, when she was alive, did suffer from dementia. I obviously won't mention him by name or anything to protect his identity. But she passed away. It's probably about maybe 10 years ago. And he has kind of his own spiritual beliefs, but he's more religious as well. And I had noticed when I went into the property, so downstairs feels quite normal, but upstairs felt a little bit different. There was just a different feeling about it. You know, like you're being watched or something else is up there. It just had this funny, odd feeling. And I've also noticed when I've been working with a client, I've heard noises from upstairs. Now, it could be to do with the heating, convection, all sorts of, there could be lots of reasons why I'm hearing the noises upstairs. So I won't jump to conclusions, it's got to be. But however, from my experience in the past, I used to hear like the floorboards creaking as if something was walking and things like that. So there was always some odd eeriness. So it's not too far off that scale. You hear a few noises upstairs. One could be by chance. Two, the more times you hear a noise, it's the frequency. Then you can start to add it up together. I mean, sometimes if you've got animals in the house, it's quite obvious. The cat jumps down, so it's walking around. But it's not always so obvious. Or if you have got pets and they start acting weird, then you definitely know something's odd about that. And so I noticed this feeling I had up there, and also sounds coming from up there. And there was one day I forgot to do something. So when I was with a client, I said good night and so on. And because he has hearing aids, I don't know if he had his hearing aids in or what he was doing, but he had his eyes closed, and maybe he was praying. I don't think he wasn't praying. He was, basically, he was speaking to his dead wife's spirit. So what he was doing, he had his eyes closed, and he was talking about what was happening in the day. I came back in there to do something, so I just got on and did what I needed to do. But I tried not to interfere with what he was doing. He didn't know I was there, so I did the paperwork I forgot to do, and then I left and locked up. But I realised he was talking to a spirit, which is maybe why she still kind of frequents the property. Still has that kind of paranormal lingering. So but it doesn't surprise me. So often when we think about people's spirits, we can draw them in to us as well. There was some stuff to do with jinn stuff. I was thinking, well, why would certain spirits be interested in people's lives? And then the thing is, if you're a child and you're spiritually open, so your chakras are kind of, when they're active, or they might be overactive, then they kind of glow a certain light to them, and that acts like a beacon to entities that are sort of dark entities, darklings, I guess we call them. And something's an luminary. It's of the light, and I guess something it's like a darkling, isn't it? It's of the dark. However, we all have a kind of like dark inner spirit, so something's more of a light elemental, I guess. And so there's attachment is that if you're like a small child and you're spiritually switched on, maybe you've got quite a strong spirit in the body of the child, it draws in other entities, become interested in it. And also some of the energy we let off, other things can feed on this emotional energy. It's quite interesting. I've been watching a series called Lost Girl, and it's all about the Fae, dark Fae and light Fae. But one of the features is that the emotions also connect with chi, and these certain beings will feed off certain types of chi. That's the idea of it. And so that's why some, I feed off rage or cool despair or whatever. It depends if they've got dark powers. Equally something could feed off negative energy and turn it into something else. Which could be true if you've got like something that's a bit of a trickster. Maybe that absorbs negative energy but can also use it against people. Cause confusion and other things like that. So that's quite an interesting stuff I've been following, and also today I was looking at something to do with the fairies, and whether it's a story that's made up or not, I don't know. But the idea was this woman's daughter said she noticed in the flowers that there were fairies, or she was talking to the flowers, and it said that there were fairies. And I've had this from an older woman. She said I was sort of with a load of these flowers, and there was all these pansies together, like a load of them. She looked at them and she realised they were all like little faces in the pansies. And I think you probably are right, to be honest. They're a living entity, as an entity attachment to the plant that guards them, and that's equally what happens when people possibly, when people pull berries off plants and things like that. Just because we don't we only understand pain in a certain sort of level, doesn't mean that the plant's not feeling it. So if somebody's going around pulling bits of it off, that it could cause some sort of distress that could be picked up by some other entity that's guarding it. And if you see a greedy human that's picking up all the berries off a plant, then he might be seen as a kind of, like he's feeding off them, he's negative in some way, so then maybe something might occur as a result of that. Anyway, so what happened with this woman's child is that she saw these fairies, and they said they would see her later. She said mum had to sort of pull her away from this park, and said, look, she sort of said, well, we can see the flowers at home, but then she started mentioning about she could see fairies, or she could see something that mum sort of thought that's a bit odd, but just an imaginative child or whatever. I used to be that age and see the same. And she said, oh, okay, it's okay, I will see you later. And I said, what do you mean see you later? Oh, I'll see him later. And then she went off. But when her mum woke her up in the morning, she was comatose and she wouldn't wake up. And so she's allegedly been in a coma ever since. And mum laid next to the child and fell asleep, and then she could kind of hear the child in her head when she was in her sleep, saying that she was in the place she's supposed to be or something. But the only issue of that is that that's not really true. Otherwise, she would be given a body of a human. So it could be an entity selfishly, making her feel that she should be happy with them, but she wouldn't exist without a body. It could be negative. The body would die, or maybe her spirit would leave the body, and maybe a fairy folk would take over her body. So that's the other thing. Like you get these so-called changelings. So something like that might happen. Often, I've mentioned before, with babies, when they're born, they're kind of like the template. There's the soul essence, or this energy to do with the body. It's like Mother Earth, but the spirit of the child is not necessarily completely integrated with the body. And you notice that the baby seems to take on certain features, and it will change. Suddenly you notice the child's got a character. It's not just screaming for milk and its nappy changed. It's actually got a personality sort of kicked in. It starts acting a particular way. So that's sometimes something I notice. Recent experience. I'm trying to look at some jinn. I tell you, some jinn activity. I had some jinn activity with early morning. Something went through my head, and then I had this kind of feeling like I was paralysis on my back. But I might have had an illness. I don't know what's been wrong with me, or maybe I've had a curse put on me. I don't know. But I haven't been feeling so great for the last week or so. It could be my experiment with eating sea bass, because I cooked the whole sea bass, the whole of it, and so I might have had bacteria from its stomach of the sea bass into my body, or other kind of pathogenic from the actual fish itself. And so my body's adapted to it. Basically, it's adapting to a different bacteria. I must admit, you can tell. How you can tell is if when you go to the toilet, if it smells different. So if you're eating a lot of meat, then it might do. It does get stronger because your bowel movements are slower. And I've tried with the meat all sort of like cooked in the slow cooker, and pretty much it's the same really. It's going to be kind of slow moving anyway, like a kind of high protein combination. It's not necessarily so badly constipated, but then if I had a touch of the norovirus, it's combined with the meat has allowed me not to get the runs. or a certain amount of sickness, because I've been eating once a day as well. So I haven't really been eating enough to feel too sick. I've had stomach cramps, but there's been nothing really to bring up. So I've had a bit of acid in the mouth. I've sort of laid down, I got up, and I sort of like, sort of burped or whatever, and it's acidy in the mouth. So there's indigestion, certainly. But that's passed, and it was a bit more like a sleepy bug. I just felt tired and achy body. So I don't think it's necessarily some kind of curse, necessarily, but it's strange that it did have some involvement. Or they could have been trying to heal me. I don't know. There was something I had before, and then recently it's very strange because I had an eye mask on, but I can still kind of see the room through my third eye. I can still sort of make out the shapes in the dark. And even when I've taken the mask off and I sort of had my eyes closed and opened it, I saw this thing and it had only like one eye. And I couldn't tell if it was an eye or a mouth. It seemed to be sort of a combination of the two almost. And it was just like a big dark, I'm trying to, the way I could sort of phrase it, it wasn't quite like a cloud, but the nearest thing I've come across to it was there was a program called Space 1999, and it had these creatures that fed off radiation in them, and they kept the humans in some type of trance. And the idea was like, don't worry about your life. You'll just die and it'll be fine. And we feed off radiation. Now this thing, I don't know if it was a succubus or what it was. It looked like wanting to give me a kiss. I don't know. It was looking at me with. Well, maybe I was looking at its third eye. I don't know. It's just a bit confusing. And I think that's the fear. The fear is from these entities. If a human can see them, they'd be afraid of them, and that we normally attack things out of our fear. We go to war against things we fear. So, if modern day science finds a fairy, we would probably be inventing something to knock them out of one realm, or a way to track them down, manipulate them, experiment with them, whatever we could do to basically gain some sort of power or control. Even if in that kind of realm, the interest to control them becomes a bit too impulsive, I guess, as our species, because we've become very curious about things we don't fully understand, and we won't leave them alone either. It's what they call our monkey brain. If that's true, we've got the monkey genetics in us, which is probably more likely because the chromosomes are more like in a little monkey rather than a chimpanzee. Chimpanzee's something genetically different, I think. They don't have tails and anything, but they're different. So yeah, the curiosity, and also maybe some of the social structures about it, and intelligence to find out things work and stuff like that. The curiosity. Inquisitive like monkeys. Well, they have no language, their language skills completely different, so different species. So yeah, I've just been looking at going back to jinn and stuff, just looking at magic books and other things. I did come across one that had these jinns with different eyes, and they're meaning different things. And I don't think it's necessarily evil, it's just, it was just looking at me, to be honest. So it's just making sense of that. What does that mean? What is it? Does it have a certain abilities? Does it function in a certain way socially within its order? I don't know, unless the thing communicates directly with me. I won't know. It's more like it just sort of pops in and it's interested. Or maybe, like I say, this reality is just like one big simulator, and these things, like the bots and things that maintain it. But what are they doing? Are they collecting information from the humans and archiving it somewhere else? This sort of human experiment, and it makes you wonder what you are as well. You've got these bodies, but are we much like these entities, shadow entities underneath? And I probably think we're slightly different because when I've seen things with my third eye, they tend to be more light. There's light beings that move around, so you might get flashes of light. They're definitely like fairy stuff. You suddenly get a flash in your kind of in your eyes when you're asleep. It's like something electrical has just gone off, and it could be there's electrical imbalance in the brain. But why would it cause it, and it somehow affecting the optical nerve? Possibly. But I wouldn't really understand why that would be occurring. It could even be there's lots of things like Wi-Fi and so on where they correlate the Wi-Fi. It could be a bit like a microwave, and so the might stimulate the photons in the retina. But I don't think that's what's occurring. So yeah, if you kind of close your eyes and you start seeing dark movement in front of them, it's like there's something there. But it's obviously also don't react to it. There's no point. It's not going to harm you. You know, if you said that there's microwaves produced by the sun, most people wouldn't even bat an eyelid. But if you said a microwave generates microwaves and it cooks your food, you know, people go, oh well, okay. But you're not worried about it. But if you could see them coming down, then you would. It's a bit like I've started wearing these glasses that are reaction glasses, and I noticed on cloudy days that they turn into sunglasses, and I'm thinking, I didn't realise there was so much UV light at certain times of the day where it's cloudy. It makes me think about my eyesight and protecting my eyes. I go, oh right, Christ. But otherwise, if there wasn't a reaction, I wouldn't be, it would just be there, it would just go over the top of my head, I wouldn't be worried about it. And I think that's the same you need for the entities, not to react to things, because they're more likely to be more involved in your life if you don't react to them in a sort of frightened way or whatever. More of a case of a sense of calmness, a bit like with animals. You know, if you've got dogs and so on, if you have the right kind of a mental approach, I think it reflects also in the animals as well. They pick up on it. So it's the same way for entities. Your mind's giving off a lot of information, so they'll pick up on all sorts of things. I mean, they might be able to see your emotions. You might be like glowing a different colour. You know, like people when are angry, they might turn red or they're embarrassed, and that's like a telltale sign. But for a human, his aura might shift, and they might think, oh Christ, you know, he's reacting to me, or he might be starting to give off certain energy, and they'll be interested. They'll be feeding off that, you know, if they're parasitic. And they may be drawn to different types of energy. So, you know, some things like the succubus might be sexual energies, where somebody's built it up in their body and then haven't released it. These things might be drawn to that. Or other emotional states, like maybe they're angry over something and it's built up as a kind of stress hormone. But in their aura, you can see there's a lot of sort of like stress energy. There might be something to feed off that. So there might be good things as well, angelic things that can feed off negative. But it's all as a part of some cycle, if there is. And it's kind of this release and going back to a neutral state that's important. And I don't know, trying to get a deeper understanding of fairies. I did see some comments about fairies. I think the best way you can do is possibly through plants and meditation. They say flowers, maybe because flowers are more, I guess they're the more energetic part of the plant, in the essence that it's the female and the sort of male sex part of the plant. And so if you're looking sort of for the female entity, if you're looking for fairy or male, then that would be connected to that. Say meditate with them, and also kind of Reiki healing, that kind of thing with plants, that usually helps. Right, so anyway, this is Pigsy signing off from this video, and I will speak to you again.